Okay, welcome. My name is Dr. Joshua Rosenthal. I'm one of the board members for the International Light Association. And as a sleep physician, I am thrilled and excited to interview our next guest, Rudy Nasif. Now, Rudy is an engineer, a health entrepreneur, a light expert, and he's also the founder of Viva Rays, which is a company offering the most advanced circadian light filtering eyewear for better sleep and energy. And as a sleep physician, this is something that people need to hear about. Now, as a child, Rudy was diagnosed with ADHD. Growing up, he had turned into a night owl, often feeling depressed, fatigued, and disoriented. After trying many different diets, supplements, healing modalities, nothing seemed to work. So 7 years ago, his depression and anguish became unbearable. And so he left his job as an engineer to embark on a worldwide journey of learning about himself and nature. Rudy's experience transformed his health, his life. His quest to understand this transformation and help others led to him studying light, quantum biology, and the circadian rhythm. All amazing things that if you haven't heard of, please stick around because we're going to talk about them. And that's when Viva Rays was born. So Rudy's been educating thousands of healthcare practitioners and doctors about the quantum biologic effects of light and helping them optimize their personal as well as their patients' well-being. So he's on a mission to elevate people's light environment to a whole new level of alignment with nature in order to live in optimal rhythm, improving their sleep, energy, focus, and higher productivity. And I would say, Rudy, it's a pleasure to speak with you. I've been a proponent of the type of eyewear that you've been creating at a very high level of fashion and productivity and efficiency, since I started. And I started with very ugly things that, these are not the type of, equipment that you want to be caught dead with in the public eye, right? And so tell us about your company. Tell those who've never heard of Viva Rays what you do and what exciting things you can offer.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Josh. It's
Yeah,
a pleasure to chat again. Last time we chatted, it was very interesting. But anyway, Viva Rays is an inspired idea to bring a balanced rhythmic light into our indoor lifestyle. And the whole idea with Viva Rays was actually an inspiration based on my own struggle and my own story with light, which actually, as you mentioned, it began when I was a little kid at school, 3 or 4 years old. I used to suffer from debilitating headaches, agitation, and inability to focus. And intuitively, as a kid, I found myself needing to leave the classroom, making excuses or making trouble. So the teacher kicked me out, and I would be outside bathing in sunlight. Now, my teachers really didn't understand my needs, and they got very annoyed about what I was doing. So somehow I was diagnosed with ADHD. And this label was absolutely heavy for me because I did not know what it meant. And everybody was treating me in a way as if I'm a kid that is, inferior in a way. Whereas my inner voice always have been telling me that none of that is actually true, and I shall listen to my own intuition and not be in this classroom. But unfortunately, this didn't work because I was forced to stay in this class, and it was torturing. So growing up, I do believe like this event in my life and being led to being forced being in the class really disconnected me from my own voice. And I found myself growing up a night owl who stayed up very late, feeling super wired, super stimulated. And then I would wake up the following morning feeling exhausted, lacking the energy and focus. And eventually living in this lifestyle has led me to deep depression, chronic fatigue, and complete disorientation. And it was really sabotaging my professional life as an engineer. I remember at the age of 21, my memory and cognition were extremely low. Like I could hardly read a few pages from a book before I feel that my brain is exhausted and I need to take a nap. So as you may imagine, I was desperately looking for a solution in order to feel better. And I started feeling a bit overwhelmed because I kept going from one doctor to another, and conventional medicine advised me that I should be taking prescription drugs. And thankfully, I had some awareness to refuse that. So I started a long journey with holistic medicine, and I kept going from one doctor to another, dabbling with all these different diets, taking a lot of supplements. And I used to exercise and meditate. So while all of these things helped me and built a positive foundation in my life, I was still stuck with this same cycle of feeling super wired at night and extremely depressed and exhausted the following morning. Now, why am I telling this story? Because this exact story is what led to Viva Rays being born. But what I'm going to share right now is going to blow some people's mind because it's very simple. And it has influenced me in ways where years of going from one doctor to another and trying all these different diets could not influence me. So this specific event that I'm going to talk about literally helped me to go from crawling on my fours to walking, from walking to running, and from running to literally soaring. Okay. And it's very simple. I actually went on a farm, a rural farm in Quebec, where I was sleeping in my tent for 6 weeks, and I was volunteering on this farm. I was helping them with their permaculture farming tasks. And in exchange, I was sleeping there at their farm and eating from the organic produce. Now, throughout those 6 weeks, I was exposed only to natural sunlight during the day and fire and candlelight during the evening. And that was something totally new to me, being someone who lives in the city. So in a matter of 3 days, something miraculous happened. I literally started winding down in the evening, sleeping shortly after the sunset, to then wake up before the sunrise for the first time in my life, feeling absolutely rested, energized, motivated. The first 3 days, I didn't even know what to do with that energy. I was, going from someone who's feeling extremely depressed, almost suicidal, foggy-headed, unable to function, to having a flow of energy moving through me suddenly. It was a shock. And to me, I didn't understand how this happened because I didn't change my diet. I didn't take supplements, and I was still meditating and exercising in the same way. So this pure magic that I experienced didn't last very long, unfortunately, because when my 6 weeks ended, I moved back to the city. And at the time I was still living in Toronto. And within a matter of few weeks, I literally fell back into my old terrible routine of feeling wired at night, waking up, lacking the energy, feeling exhausted, extremely depressed. So at this point, I start really asking myself deeply in my heart, like, how could I go from one extreme to another? Like, what happened? And I remember going to a Vipassana meditation retreat. It's a silent retreat where you sit in silence for 10 days. And the only question I had written upon my heart throughout the 10 days, I wanted to understand what happened. And I started getting glimpses that was about my light environment. And to me, as an engineer, I'm trained to look at light as something superficial that makes vision possible. And that has nothing to do with health and with nothing to do with our biology. So regardless of my analytical mind, I followed my intuition and I started digging deep. And I wanted to understand how light was actually shaping and molding every aspect of my life. So I started a long journey of going from one farm to another and volunteering on all these different farms up north in Canada, living with indigenous communities, involving myself in working with the land. But best of all, in every farm I went, I accessed the same light lifestyle where I had a lot of sunlight during the day and no artificial lighting whatsoever at night. And finally, I was able to dig through all these books and to study quantum biology and circadian rhythm. And what I learned is something absolutely simple. I learned that we are light beings, and light is actually molding and shaping every aspect of our life. It influences our mood, our productivity, our sleep, our digestion, everything. There's no one thing that is not touched by light. So the problem was for me is realizing that anytime I'm back to the city, I'm able to harness the power of sunlight by changing my behavior. However, I felt stuck with artificial lighting because it was everywhere. Everywhere I went, I saw artificial lights, and it was really disturbing my dopamine, my motivation, my sleep, and all things. And at that point, I really wanted to find a solution. So I started learning about blue light blocking glasses. And it was a long journey of experimenting with so many different lenses. I started with those clear lenses, which ended up being a marketing gimmick because they were actually blocking blue light that was not emitted by devices and electronics and LED bulbs. And then I started trying so many different lenses. And it was an interesting journey that led me to decide that I want to collaborate with optic experts from British Columbia to come up with a solution that is able to filter out different amounts of light holistically, depending on the time of the day, as well as depending on the harmful devices and LEDs that we are exposing ourselves to. And finally, we were able to come up with what we call this 3-lens circadian light filtering eyewear that is able to filter out different frequencies at different times of the day, helping us to align our circadian clock with the time outside.
Yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful story because I think hopefully everyone listening is realizing that we are domesticated humans. And if we would get back into our natural environment, which is really what you did, and you became a farmer, right? And that was all that was needed to break free from the cage that we don't see, which is the tech and artificial light, matrix that we live in. And when you actually see that for the first time and say, hey, let's break into the real natural frequencies. So it's a beautiful story. And as a sleep guy, I mean, of course, I love it. And it's really so simple. I think hopefully people listening are hearing saying, wait, it was that simple. All you had to do was go live on a farm, but I can't live on a farm. Well, that's why, you did what you did. And explain to the people who are listening for the first time, I know this and you know this, but there are different needs for lighting, mitigation techniques when you're talking about being in artificial environments during the day. And explain how, your lens system, accommodates that. I know you're wearing the glasses now. If you could even show the lenses as you're talking about, I think that'd be tremendously helpful for people who are just new to this, because a lot of light people are not familiar with the true circadian needs. I think we know that artificial light is bad, but I don't think people understand the details. And the details, as you said, between those clear lenses, I've had many people that say, oh, I got blue blocking lenses, and they're clear. If they're clear, they're not doing anything that's going to help your circadian mechanism, your melanopsin receptor, not going to do any of that. And the details really matter. So talk to the listeners, explain a little bit about your product, because it really addresses, I think, the needs. There are differing needs that you have.
Yeah, absolutely. There are so many different aspects that will determine how a particular source of light will influence and affect our circadian clock. But the most basic one that most of us know is the wavelength of light or the color of light. And this means that shorter wavelength light, like blue light, will have a greater effect on our circadian clock than longer wavelength light, like red light. However, this does not mean that red light will not have an effect on our circadian clock. With that being said, what can we do with this? We know that we need a lot of blue light during the day because it's gonna reset our circadian clock and it's going to elevate our mood. And we have evolved to get a lot of blue light from sunlight. However, this particular thing tends to be very abused and misinterpreted in a sense where many health experts nowadays are advising people to get a lot of blue light from artificial lighting. And what most of people don't realize is, yes, there is the truth to needing a lot of blue light during the day, which will reset our circadian rhythm and allow us to sleep better. However, it is missing And once a truth is missing something, it will become half a truth that leads to a full lie. Now, why is it missing? Because if we look at the spectral curve of sunlight, it's balanced and it's proportionate. So it's full spectrum blue light that is balanced and proportionate with all the visible colors of the rainbow. And we have also UV light and infrared light that play an absolutely essential role as well, that seems that no one is talking about nowadays. But when we look at the spectral curve of artificial lighting, like a screen or even an LED bulb, those devices are not even emitting full spectrum blue light. They're emitting a narrow peak of blue light at 455 nanometer that is very distorted, unbalanced, and is not proportionate with the yellow, orange, and red light. Now, why is that a problem? Because blue light in nature, even from sunlight, is very stimulating. It's degenerative. It increases reactive oxygen species and free radicals. And this is not necessarily something bad, because exercise increases reactive oxygen species. However, when done in a balanced way, it actually stimulates the production of antioxidants. It boosts our immune system, and it's something great. But if we exercise 24/7, what will happen? Everyone knows that we'll end up hurting ourselves. Similarly, when we are chronically exposing ourselves to this 455 nanometer frequency that is isolated from the colors that balance it out in nature, then we start producing reactive oxygen species in abnormal ways. And this is when we start running into inflammation and degeneration of the tissues and mitochondrial dysfunction and so on. There's thousands of different effects that we are subjected to when we are exposed to unbalanced artificial lighting. One of which, for instance, which has been shown by Fritz Holwich back in the 1970s, is that anytime we're exposed to this deficient, unbalanced artificial lighting, it's increasing our cortisol and ACTH in abnormal ways. And what this does, it does so many different things. We become stressed, we become so tense, but also it diverts the production of pregnenolone in the mitochondria from fertility and sex pathways to more cortisol, and we start feeling foggy-headed and puffy. So with that being said, we really need to be careful with what we advise people. And we need a lot of blue light coming from sunlight, but when it comes to artificial lighting, this blue light is not balanced, and therefore we need to find a way to balance it out. And this is what exactly the Viva Rays daytime glasses do, because they are engineered not to block blue light, but to decrease the sharpness of this 455 nanometer frequency and making it more balanced and proportionate with the yellow and the green light, so that it's a step towards balance. It's not absolute balance yet, because we're still not getting full spectrum sunlight in our eyes. However, relative to sitting in front of a device that is very unbalanced, the glasses will bring you forward towards balance. And for sure, you'll still need to deliberately take time every 90 minutes or so and go outside and expose your eyes to natural sunlight. So we've covered daytime glasses. Now, we have also come up with this very interesting technology that allow you to seamlessly transition from one lens to another without needing to carry out 3 different frames. So the lenses that I just snapped on here, they're the evening lenses, and they are engineered to mimic the color temperature of the bonfire at 1800 kelvins. Now, why so? Because throughout evolution, we have evolved to be outside around sunset, which signal to our body that it's time to start winding down and preparing for a restful night's sleep. But when we came back to our community, we were exposed to fire and candlelight. And fire and candlelight is very rich in the orange and in the red light. And it does not disturb our circadian clock because, first of all, it's not rich in the shorter wavelength blue light that we just mentioned. And second of all, it's not bright enough to stimulate our circadian clock in the wrong direction. Nowadays, we come back home and we are exposed to the second sun from devices and bulbs. And this is why we advise people to snap on these lenses. helping the brain to understand, or helping the brain rather to not be confused again into thinking that it's daytime, and therefore disrupting all the mechanism that prepare our body for a restful night's sleep. Now, lastly, about an hour before bed, we advise people to switch to the nighttime lenses here. And those are very interesting lenses because they block 100% of the blue and the green, but they also decrease the brightness by 15 times. Why is that? Because by the beginning of our conversation, I mentioned that there are so many different aspects that will determine how a source of light will influence our circadian clock. I mentioned the wavelength of light, and I said that blue light will stimulate us more than red light. Also, another very important aspect is the brightness or the level of light arriving at the level of the eye. And nowadays, we are exposed to a lot of bright light after the sunset, sometimes in blue, but other times in orange or yellow. And it will still have a negative effect on our sleep and circadian rhythm, even if it's red, even if it's yellow. Okay. So it's absolutely important to have a system that will help us to decrease that brightness. The best thing we can do also is to position the lighting at a lower level towards the floor, because basically melanopsin, this protein in the eye that signal to our central clock about the lighting environment, is most sensitive to overhead light, because those melanopsin are actually most concentrated in the bottom half of the retina. And because of the nature of the retina, there's an inversion that happens, and melanopsin will be most stimulated by overhead, which makes sense because sunlight is overhead.
Yeah, I mean, this product is very beautiful and elegant because as a person trying to swim upstream in a tech world, which was not designed to deliver the appropriate frequencies to corroborate a healthy, optimal circadian rhythm, you have different needs from when you wake up till when the sun goes down till before bed. And, you know, up until this time, I think it's cumbersome. And, you know, I'm going to speak for the blind community, and by blind, I mean people who have a prescription, because, you know, I wear glasses not for style, but because I have nearsightedness. I'm myopic. And again, myopia is associated with lack of solar exposure. So kids who stay more indoors are more likely to wear glasses. Nobody told me that, or maybe I wouldn't wear glasses today. But so, you know, it becomes a challenge, especially if you have a pre-existing, you know, optic, you know, problem, you know, whether you're nearsighted, farsighted, you have some other eye problem that requires some sort of corrective lenses. It's really hard to do this properly. You know, the people who don't have any, they can just pick up anything off the street and they can throw it on. But, you know, the fact that you can have a base prescription built into your lenses and not have to pay, because I will tell you, if you need 3 different pairs of lenses, each with a prescription, that gets very expensive, right? Because each lens is very expensive. It's talking hundreds of $100s each pair. And you really should have at least 2 pairs, more likely 3, maybe even 4, as we can maybe talk about, you know. So
yes,
ultimately, this is one of the few products I've seen. And again, as a sleep physician, I'm always encouraging some sort of light mitigation. What we just described is how somebody who can off the street pick up a pair of glasses and mitigate daytime indoor, nighttime indoor, and pre-bed, you know, indoor, and still potentially do some of the stupid things we do with tech, which are really hurting us, but we can mitigate a lot of the dangers. And, you know, I just want people to realize what you said earlier is about blue light, about cortisol, about free radicals. The same keys hold the kingdom to heaven and hell. In other words, blue light is not bad. It's how you use blue light. It comes from the sun, and it's with everything else, and it's in the right, you know, arrangement and configurations. And I think people don't understand that. So they hear this one and they go, oh, everything about blue light's bad, or and these details really matter. You want to get blue light, but you want it to come from the sun. You mentioned, and I want to just emphasize this idea of a sun break. You know, people used to take smoke breaks. You should go out, even for 5 minutes. It can change your life because those details of the sun and such, you know, light is nonlinear. I'm sure you understand this, but people listening may not. It means that a really small amount of light can have a really huge impact, because, you know, the energy information that's in there can be amplified through signaling in your body in such a powerful way. And, you know, I know you're aware of this, but hopefully people are hearing that. And so you have to do something. If you're standing in front of a screen right now and you have nothing between your eyes and the screen, because right now you're seeing, this very powerful blue light. And this, as you can cooperate this, the light frequencies of blue light that we're seeing are actually not intentionally, but are almost zeroed in on the blue light receptors, melanopsin. So melanopsin has a spectral sensitivity to certain frequencies of blue light. And of course, all these devices are like zapped right in to that really high frequency sensitivity. So this is really, really dangerous. That's why a lot of the research publications talk about this idea, the blue light hazard, right? And so, you're protecting against this hazard. And I think people need to hear about it. So it's great. So now,
Yeah.
I know for me, one of my big problems as a lens wearer, corrective lens wearer, is when I go outside, I got to do this, I got to do this. Why? Because I want those frequencies to get in. I mean, this is still, one of those problems where if you don't have corrective lenses, you could just put your blue blocking glasses and put them, on the desk and go outside. But for me, I still want to see usually. And so this is still a problem that, we find if we have lenses and we're trying to block blue light. So, what can be done for somebody like that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. I'm actually very enchanted to be able to share today about a phenomenal tool that will help people to maximize the benefits of sunlight throughout the whole day and truly harness that power. And it's going to be particularly interesting for people who wear prescription lenses, even for someone who doesn't wear prescription, because they probably know someone who wears prescription and they could truly help them. The problem with prescription, as you mentioned, is that they are inherently designed to block 100% of UVA and UVB. And I know that many people listening right now, they're probably saying, why is that a problem? I have heard that UVA and UVB are bad and that I need to avoid them at all costs. And if you have thought this particular thing in your mind, then let's have a conversation about it, because it's important and it's going to radically transform your health. There's actually hundreds, if not thousands, of peer-reviewed studies and quality paper pointing at all the tremendous benefits, health benefits to UV light. However, somehow the medical system has not caught up yet with these studies and still operating on an old belief and understanding that UV is bad, based on few studies that were done back in the 1980s that created a lot of fear. And again, we tend to fall into this polarization. And the reason why I wanted to make it clear that blue light is not bad nor good, and thanks for you reiterating this, is because we tend to polarize things, and we tend to want to look at something as either completely bad or completely good, whereas in nature everything is relative, and it's about putting things together in a balanced, rhythmic manner that creates balance effects. But with all that being said, those studies back in the 1980s, I think one of the main one was actually done on monkeys in the College of Virginia in 1981. And the results of this study is highly questionable and do not pertain to reality. They actually, the eyelids of the monkeys were wide open with eye clamps that really dilated their pupil and made the natural mechanism of blinking impossible, which is the mechanism that we all use to adjust to different brightness of light and protect our eyes. And beside this abuse, they actually shone a very bright amount of light into their eyes with abnormal amounts of UV that actually are not present in our normal life, that we do not really get from sunlight. Also, this UV came in isolation, unlike sunlight, which always come in a balanced manner with its polar opposite, infrared light. Anytime we're exposed to UV, there is infrared that is balancing it out. It never comes in isolation. So it's very easy to conclude that, yes, this study has actually burnt out the monkey's eyes. And we made a conclusion that UV light is really bad for the eyes. And I tell you that if we shine high amounts of UV light with this way of abusing someone into their eyes, it is going to hurt them for sure. But trace amounts of UV light like the way we are designed to get it from sunlight, is absolutely essential for life and for health. And Dr. John Ott actually says that every frequency of light is extremely important. And there's no one frequency that is more important than the other. Just like if we think of food, there's no one mineral and vitamin that is more important than the other. We need a balanced consumption of them all to feel healthy, vibrant, and radiant.
I'm just going to say,
And I like what.
I was just going to interrupt to say that, the dietary world is very clear to say, eat the colors of the rainbow. But
Exactly.
we need to see and expose our skin to the colors of the rainbow, all the colors. We just don't see the colors when they come in because it all comes in as white light. I mean, on this video right now, you see the light hitting me. You don't think of the colors. You see I wore a blue shirt. I did that intentionally. The point is, colors, you can't see them, but you have to start to understand what you're actually getting, right? This is a junk lighting, right? But when we go outside, we're getting this well balanced. And I think that's so important, what you're saying. So I'm sorry, keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great point. And also I wanted to mention a great analogy that Dr. John Ott made. He said if we overgive oxygen to a baby born, it's gonna blind them, but it would be foolish to think that oxygen is bad and we need to avoid it at all costs. Also contemplating on this, I thought to myself, if I put my hand in a furnace, I will burn it, but it will also be foolish to think that I need to avoid fire all of my life.
Right.
And similarly, it's odd to still see that in our scientific community, with highly intelligent people that are able to reason for themselves, that we are still falling for such studies that have been operating out of the laws of balance. And we have concluded that UV light is bad and that we need to avoid it at all costs. It really surprises me.
But it shouldn't surprise you because doctors are not taught physics. I say that as a physician who went through my training and had to learn a lot of the same stuff that you've learned. To understand light, you have to understand physics. We're talking about wavelength. We're talking about luminosity, the brightness. We're talking about different terms, different labels, a whole different knowledge base. And this is the disconnect. And it's
exactly.
It's not ironic that the very light that changes your dopamine and neurotransmitter pathways, the very light that would cause you to not see things that are right underneath your nose is the light that we don't know about, right? I mean, it's kind of this great irony that the light underneath our nose is affecting our health and we don't see it. It's making us not see it because it's making our ability to see clearly through dopamine, through the use of our, cognition. It's just a little altered. It alters our reality. So it's just ironic. I mean, and we're stuck in this loop,
Exactly. And one of the things that I always tell people and that I realized for myself is that light literally creates reality. Through the light that enters our eyes, we are able to make a model of ourself in space and time. And it's affecting the way we perceive ourselves, the way we perceive the world, and the way we perceive others in our environment. And it's now known in science that light is actually programming all of the neurotransmitters and neuromodulators that enable us to perceive and to see reality the way we see it, such as dopamine you mentioned. And we're coming to a massive problem in our society where people are inherently wired to wanting to feel good, to wanting this dopamine. However, it's becoming very dysfunctional because people are no longer getting that dopamine from nature, which is sustainable, which sustain us for long periods of time. We are trying to seek it from artificial sources like the light from the phone shining on our face, or the notification from social media, or even pornography and drugs and all these dysfunctional stuff that are leading to addiction. Whereas nature has gifted us with what we call UV light, which provides the energy for the natural conversion of tyrosine into dopamine. And dopamine is this miraculous molecule that throughout evolution, it led us to seek novelty, to overcome danger, to stand up and pay attention, to seek what we really want in life, to create, to be creative, and to think outside of the box and to plan. And when dopamine is low, as you said, it's very difficult to see things as they are because our reality is being altered by the type of light that is entering our eyes, or the lack of the right light that must enter our eyes as well. So with that being said, UV light is absolutely important. Just to name a few things about the importance of UV light out of thousands of things. And we could sit here for hours and speak about UV light. But we now know that UV light actually lowers blood pressure. There's very interesting studies showing how individuals with high blood pressure exposed to UV light had a drastic drop in their blood pressure, and the results lasted 5 to 6 days after exposure. It also makes our heart more efficient. I was looking at some studies showing how individuals who exposed themselves to UV light in a proper way, they actually experienced on average a 35% increase in their cardiac output. And this means that their heart became stronger and it was pumping more blood into the organs, into the tissues, leading to more healing and better energy metabolism. Also, UV light decreases our resting heart rate, which makes you calm and less reactive and less anxious in your environment. UV light makes you lose weight because it stimulates your thyroid gland and it actually increases your metabolism and growth hormone and your natural ability to burn fat. It increases sex hormones, and there's tons of studies showing how different males and females had up to 120 to 130% increase in their sexual hormones production. So there's countless things that UV light.
If people want, I'll just throw in two other, big, huge Pandora's boxes about UV light. One is UV light helps us make vitamin D. So anything that they say vitamin D is a benefit, you can go back and say UV light was the cause, because there was no vitamin D pill when we were walking around with bare knuckles. The other side of that is, as we're talking about circadian biology a lot today, realize that we have this blue light receptor, melanopsin. We also have a UV light receptor called neuropsin, right? And we have these receptors in our body. We have them in our eye, but yet why are we telling people in the medical community, don't let any UV light get in your eye, it's going to damage your eye, it's damage your eye. You have receptors to receive UV light. Why would the divine plan and the architecture of our eye be made so that we could detect UV light if we were never supposed to see it? I mean, it's just, there's a logical gap here between what we say and how nature created us. And we just have to use simple, basic principles to understand that then it must be needed in some degree. And we're back to the dose makes the poison, right? The same key opens the door to heaven and hell. Yeah, if you put a clamp on my eyes and you stick me in front of a UV light 24/7, I'm probably going to fry my eyes out. I mean, none of this is shocking. I mean, I hope all the listeners appreciate that this makes sense. It's logical. There's way more science behind this than we've even told you about, which is we've shared a lot. I mean, you've shared a lot of great stuff, but we don't even need to get into that. It's so simple. It's really so simple. And that's the beauty of it. I mean, none of this is hard to understand. It's mimic nature, right? And so that's it. So, this is fantastic. I know we're coming to the end of time. I want to talk about, because your product obviously is the glasses. That's how the company started. But I know that you're very passionate about this, as am I. And so there are a lot of things that you need to really try to control a circadian rhythm when you live in this tech artificial in the box in a room sort of a life. So what, where is Viva Rays as a company going? What other products? I mean, how else? Because there's lots of ways that you can get these details right, even though you're doing the things wrong. So do you have anything else down the pipeline that you could talk about that could help people that are listening and benefit their circadian biology?
Yeah, absolutely. So talking about UV light and prescription, on Monday, we are very excited because we're going to launch this new technology. And people who have prescription will finally be able to order lenses that allow 60 to 70% more UV light through the lenses. And they could finally be outside and not worry about not getting enough UV in the eyes.
Now, I'm going to add something that you didn't even mention, but I want people to realize that some people are stuck indoors because of their job. And if you put up, and I have one here right now myself, I have a UV light shining on me, so that while I'm indoors, I'm getting this equivalency of a little bit of being outside. But guess what? These glasses block the UV light from hitting my eyes. So exactly. I can't even really get, even though I'm trying to mitigate it. So this UV light glasses the ability to let UV light through, I just want people to realize that this is a huge win for anybody that understands circadian biology. Because now, not only can you go outside and get UV, but when you're indoors, you can't get it either. And now you could get it as well. So this is a huge way to start to spark your health. I'm excited. We're going to have to talk offline because I got to get my pair, because this is huge. And I hope people, I'm a sleep physician, I'm a circadian lover. Circadian biology is crucial for your wellness. If you heard this and your ears didn't perk up, that's because you don't know circadian biology. I promise you, when you listen to these talks back and you read some of this stuff, you're gonna say, wow, this is big stuff. So I hope people appreciate it. I'm excited. Anyway.
I can feel your excitement, and I'm equally as excited because I've had so many conversations before with people who were prescription, and I felt like I was not able to offer them something valuable that solved that problem. And for a while, I've been sitting with this and doing my best to talk with different optometrists, and finally, we were able to come up with a solution. And the cool thing about it is that our clients no longer need to have a frame for outdoors and a frame for indoors, because before the Viva Rays frame, they would ask us, can I wear it outdoors? I'm like, no, because it blocks the frequency of light that you don't want to be blocking outdoors. Right. So finally, right now, they could have their base frame in prescription, allowing 100% of the light outside, as well as UV. And the moment they go inside, they have three clip-ons that snap seamlessly on the base frame, and that they can protect themselves from artificial lighting. I'm super excited about this.
Yeah. So I just want to reiterate what you just said is you have a product that it literally is a 24/7 solution, because as a glass wearer and a circadian, sleep physician, there was no one size fits all. You always had to be either taking off, putting on, changing. And it was lots of different stuff. You had to know how to do it. And now for the first time, one solution exists. And I think that's, people, it is, the details matter. It is complicated. And I think to be able to purchase one thing and have a whole range of abilities to use it is just tremendous, because it's, we don't want to dumb this down for people, but it's complicated. I mean, the details really do matter. Exactly. And yes. I thank you for thinking out of the box, using your dopamine, building your dopamine by wearing the blue blocking glasses, and then coming up with a creative solution, right? Because this is something that's bothered me for a long time. So I hope, people who, if they have glasses, there's no reason to get any other product in my eyes, because now you can actually see and get health. I have pretty strong prescription. So for me, when I do this, you just turned into a fuzzy beige and brown, it's not fun. It's not fun to interact with people. And, we are social creatures, and the interaction matters. So, this is something that, again, I'm so stoked. So, and this is available on Monday.
This is going to be launched on Monday.
So hopefully when people hear this, they can literally go on your website, and hopefully they'll be able to go out on it, and hopefully they'll purchase it, because I think this is something that's going to change their health tremendously.
Yeah, I'm really excited for everyone who really wear prescription and care about their sleep, care about their circadian clock, and all of these different aspects that are tightly connected to our light exposure. Also, in Viva Rays, we have been diligently working on the production of next level lighting, because we truly think that the level of lighting that we are dealing with in our modern lifestyle is extremely harmful and toxic, and does not take into consideration the way we evolved around light and our relationship to light. It does not take in consideration that we are light beings, and that our endocrine system, our nervous system, our circadian system are all deeply influenced and controlled by light. So for the first time, we are working with some engineers in the Netherlands, some other engineers from the States, from the Light Research Institute, and some of my other passionate friends that are truly wanting to help, to try and come up with a solution that is able to mimic sunlight in every way possible. And when I say mimic sunlight, I'm not simply talking about color temperature, which is very simple nowadays to mimic. And color temperature alone is only one small aspect of lighting. We have a lot of other very important aspects, from the way sunlight increases and put on new layers of frequency as it moves up in the sky, to the brightness, to the way light changes in a 24-hour period, as well as from season to season. That are absolutely essential information that impact us in tremendous ways on a physiological level. So we are very excited for this project. It's a big project and it's requiring a lot of attention, a lot of focus, a lot of patience, because it's not one thing that we could produce very soon. We're shooting at a start that is a bit far. We don't know how to get there, but we know we will get there. And if this inspires anybody and they feel that they want to be involved in any way, please get in touch. And I'd love to connect.
We will definitely have your contact information available. I think what you're talking about, I know how difficult what you're talking about is. Maybe some of the listeners don't, but I know how difficult and it is so needed. And quite frankly, I get really bothered by the circadian light community in general, because it's kind of like the doctor doesn't get it. It's not his fault. He doesn't understand physics. The lighting community wants to sell products. I get that, but you have to understand how the system is based and match your product around that. You can't say, well, I'm just going to change the color temperature at, a little bit and call it circadian lighting. It's not really fair. It's just marketing at that point. So I really look forward to what you and some bright minds can put together, because it is a real problem. And the people who are stuck indoors, if they have products that you're coming up with, they can take the outside into the indoors and make this indoor living, which really is not good for us, a safer place. And so that's, I thank you as a sleep physician, because these products that I would purchase, and I'm constantly looking for somebody to innovate. And, I do have some lighting connections, and we do have people who are listening in the lighting community, I'm sure, to this podcast. And so hopefully they will contact you, and maybe, they can give up some of these industry features that seem so important and kind of focus on the quantum biologic side, because that's really what's going to drive success of a product. Because when people feel better, they will eventually learn and pay money for it, and so that's the key.
Great point. And one thing is, Joshua, is that I noticed that we're very stuck on this melanopsin aspect when it comes to circadian rhythm. And the problem with this is when we are trying to develop products or behavioral cues based on a scientific study that was narrow-minded, in a sense, that was only focused on one photoreceptor and how it's interacting with light, we are not actually looking at a bigger picture of how light is also influencing the nervous system, the endocrine system, the mitochondria, and all of these different aspects. So when it comes to innovating a product, it's really difficult to take one study only that is focused on one specific effect and try to come up with something that is holistic and that mimics nature's ways, because it does not work that way.
What you said is the problem with a lot of the lighting industry. It's that this is a holistic problem, and you can't take one paper, one publication, and base your whole light on that and say, well, we cut out that one frequency that seems to, that publication says is the one that's really harmful. It's the holistic. And I think, lights need to come with a health, study. I mean, that seems, it doesn't have to be the $1 million FDA studies that require for like drugs, but there should show some dramatic improvement, or, at least not deter from the typical optimal, functions, lab values, things like that we expect to see when you do it right. If you live on the farm, we want to mimic that as much as possible. And if you can show that, I think that's going to be the landmark where we make lighting accountable for health. And it has never been that to date. And if there's any way I can contribute to that, I would love to be, when that light bulb is ready, that we can actually stay and study and say, hey, look, we maintain, salivary cortisol levels. We're not increasing, free radical stress. We're not doing any of the things that if these lights that are doing to me right now are doing, right? So this is huge. And so I look forward to the future of what you and this, the bright minds that are working with you are going to come up with. Hopefully, if I can contribute, and anyone who's listening has, some ability to contribute, please do, because this is one of the big missing pieces in health, and even in the alternative integrative fields today, in my opinion. I'm sure you would agree.
Yeah, absolutely. And the only thing I'd like to say is that the level of ecstasy, exaltation, and inspiration I felt on the farm is my inner guide and my inner light that brings me all the power and all the focus and all the energy to move forward, because I truly want to bring this forth to the world. I understand how important it is at this time. as a kid who suffered from depression, anxiety, and inability to focus, it was torturing to me. And if there was someone back then who have figured it out, they could have saved me years of suffering. So this really guides me, and I feel like I will not rest until I'm able to bring a solution to the world that will truly elevate people's light environment to a whole new level of alignment with nature, so we can experience better sleep, more energy and focus, and better productivity.
I love it. And, as a parting note, tell people where they can find you. Obviously, we know the company's name is Viva Rays, but tell them where they can find it. And again, I know you have a wide variety of lenses, but I'm just as a physician, just giving some general guidance that this clip-on system is innovative. It's fantastic. And now with the UV, it's actually groundbreaking because nobody else is doing anything like this. So I'm recommending you focus on that, but there obviously are tons of other products there. But where do they go and how do they find you?
So our website is www.vivarays.com. It's VIVARAYS.com. And that's where they can find all of our products. We also have a very interesting e-booklet that I've written based on the past 5 years of studying quantum biology and circadian rhythm. And I wanted to condense it in 30 to 40 pages for anyone who has no background in physics or biology, in a way that they could read it, understand it, and know what to do with it, know the exact right steps that they can do in order to live a much healthier and more vibrant life and create a better light environment in their life. And lastly, if someone feels inspired, if you have any question, if you want to connect, reach out to me personally, Rudy@vivarays.com. It's ROUDY@vivarays.com.
Well, I'm just going to say thank you so much. It's my pleasure. I mean, as a sleep physician, as a circadian biologist myself, I applaud what you're doing. I applaud you pushing forward because, again, people don't realize this field in terms of a technological advancement of the products that are available has been very stale. The lighting, although there's lots of circadian lighting, I have not really been impressed to the degree of what the industry is doing. The blue blocking glasses community exists. I think it's sufficient, but it could be better. I think what you're doing in there, and I hope to see where this all goes. And so thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to tell people before you go?
I only want to invite people to truly be the agent of change, and to, if they learn something today, to truly share with everyone they know about the truth there is to light and the power that it holds in our life. So share the love, share the inspiration, and keep shining. I
agree. Learn one thing today, and then tomorrow learn another. You don't have to learn it in a day, and it's complicated, but it's really easy because we're following the pattern that nature created. So when in doubt, follow nature. So simple. So anyway, thank you so much, Rudy, and thank you for taking time to speak with us.